Now, do you think the ketamine is related to unlocking trauma, childhood trauma, or neurogenesis that didn't really process well when you were an adolescent or teenager, or issues with sex hormones? Do you think there's a unrooting of trauma and issues and pain growing up that was sort of healed or unlocked or rerouted, as you've said, or neural pathways that have come into being that are far better and far better for mental health in your case?
So, look, I really am a firm believer in transgenerational trauma, in epigenetics. Those studies that came out with mice where they would shock the mice while they were smelling a cherry blossom sort of scented smell, and 2 generations down the line, those mice's grandchildren, never having been shocked before, if they smelled cherry blossom, would run out the cage. And you just think of what our species has been through in the last 150 years with 2 world wars and 50 million people killed in World War II, for example. And both my grandparents were in World War II, and I don't know how much of the post-traumatic stress disorder and alcoholism was passed down through to me from my grandparents. And then you've got the trauma of your intrauterine, your birth trauma, your traumas of early childhood, so I think there's a lot that gets stored in your cellular memory. And I think...
Did you say you're a medical doctor?
Yes.
Most people would be thinking now, if they're a health practitioner, Dr. Sean, and saying, listen, is this transgenerational trauma? Is there research to this with humans? Is there science to this? I mean, I'm a huge believer and I agree with you, but it's just fascinating. It's inspiring, and it brings me hope that someone with a very strong scientific medical doctor approach will look at this and say, this is possible.
I don't think it's possible. I think it plays a major role in psychopathology. I think that we're looking at traumas here. We're looking at, but there's a huge subset of people that say, nothing's ever happened to me. There's a huge subset of people that have said, I've got wonderful parents, I've got a wonderful upbringing, I've got wonderful siblings. I don't recall ever being abused physically, mentally, emotionally, sexually. But I'm still depressed and I'm still anxious. Well, how far back does this go? Is it my grandparents? Is it my parents? Is it my great-great-parents? I'm not sure. Maybe it's got nothing to do with it. Maybe it's traumas that I've repressed from the age of 2, for example. But the thing about ketamine, and I think the psychedelics in general, seem to unravel this process. But I think they really go down inside Pandora's box, and they help shake things up a little bit, and in the right hands and with the right support system, I think they help you rewire and restructure and reorganize your trauma. I don't think you're ever going to forget it. If you've been through an Iraq war, an Afghanistan war, I don't think you're ever going to forget the trauma that you've seen. But I think that there's an opportunity for you to rewire your mind so that the emotion that's associated with that trauma doesn't plague you and haunt you.
Sure.